Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to my nutrition campaign today. And welcome to my kitchen as well. I wish we could be doing this in person, but this is a great alternative, and I'm so happy to see your faces. So today we're going to be going through fiber, and the most well-known thing when we think about fiber is typically poop. So we are going to touch on that a little bit today, but we're going to go beyond that and we'll talk about the scoop on more than just your poop. So we're going to start with our chia seeds, please. So everyone should have chia seeds handy and some water. So I would love for us to start by, all we're going to do is just pour water over the chia seeds to start. We'll just get going with the demo here. And then we're just going to set the chia seeds to the side. So if you have your water in your chia seeds, I'm just going to pour some water over mine. Set this to the side. I'm going to give it a little bit of a stir. And then we're going to let those just sit for a little bit. Set those down, and then I'll start by talking about our objectives for today. So we're going to start, in general, I want this to be an interactive environment. If possible, I would love for you to participate. And I have first on here horizontal learning, which by that I just mean I would rather have it be more of a discussion. Of course, I will be facilitating the discussion, but I don't want it rather than a vertical learning where I am talking down to you and teaching down to you. I would love for us to all, if you have questions, if you have input, if you have personal experience or a story or anything like that, I would love for you to share that, please. So we're all learning together, basically. So we're dispersing our knowledge horizontally and sharing with each other rather than me talking down to you, if that makes sense. So I hope we'll have fun today, and we're going to do some awesome demos, and yeah, that'll be a good environment for us. So then we're going to start by talking about fast fiber facts. Say that 5 times. Fast. We're going to talk about fiber in heart health. So that is, the scoop beyond more than just your poop, and the benefits and risks associated with adequate or inadequate fiber intake, respectively. We're going to talk about how much we actually need to reap those benefits and how we can get those, what foods are fiber rich to achieve those recommended goals. And to gauge that, we'll talk about looking at nutrition facts panels as well, and clarifying any of the confusion and the myths surrounding that, and hopefully take some action by eating fiber at every meal. We're going to talk about some practical steps to do that. And we're going to finish with the demo as well. So we're going to talk about how fiber rich is flavorful. It doesn't have to be boring. And that's our goal for today, is to talk about how we can spice it up, literally and figuratively. So fast fiber facts. So what is fiber? Fiber is a complex carbohydrate, which is generally considered a healthy carbohydrate that our bodies actually can't break down. But that doesn't mean it's not important. And we certainly don't want to underestimate fiber for this, because that's actually one of its superpowers. And fiber is found in plants, virtually all plants. So that is the greatest source of it, and what we're going to turn to for fiber-rich foods. It's inherent in plants. And there are 2 types: insoluble fiber and soluble fiber. We're going to start by talking about insoluble, and then we're really going to dive deeply into soluble, because that's where a lot of our heart health benefits come from. So insoluble fibers first. So insoluble fibers don't dissolve in hot water. And when we eat the insoluble fibers that are within our foods, they actually remain relatively intact. So like I said, our bodies can't break them down very well at all. And so they remain whole, essentially, as they pass through our digestive system. And they actually draw water. So to demonstrate this, I have some sponges here. And we're going to think of the sponge as if it's our insoluble fiber. So if I pour water on it, so this is like we just ate our sponge, our insoluble fiber in a meal. So I'm pouring water, and hopefully you can see, I know it's kind of tough. Maybe this way will be better. We all kind of know what a sponge does, right? It absorbs water, it draws water in, and it kind of puffs up a bit. So we can think of our sponge like our insoluble fiber. So, you know, a sponge isn't going to break down. So that's how I want us to think about it, is that it draws water in, and when it's inside of our bodies, it stays relatively intact as it passes through, which is really beneficial for our health because it keeps us full. If you think of that sponge kind of like filling up your stomach and your intestines, and because it draws the water, it makes our poop soft and adds bulk to our poop. So that means it keeps us regular. So this is kind of more so when people think about like eating fiber for preventing constipation, we're primarily thinking about insoluble fibers for that. And so that really promotes colon health, keeping us regular and preventing constipation and helping with our digestion. So that's insoluble fiber, very important. And of course, foods have a mix of insoluble and soluble. So we certainly don't want to downplay the benefits of insoluble, but we are going to go a little more deeply into soluble today, because that's where our heart health benefits are really going to be seen. So soluble fibers, these actually do dissolve in water. So in contrast to the insoluble that do not, these partially at least dissolve in hot water. So this is where our chia seeds come in. And so if you poured water over your chia seeds, I would love for you to take a look at those now and tell me what you see. What do yours look like? What happened essentially?
Kind of a gelatinous gel.
Awesome. Perfect. Perfect answer. Anyone else have anything to add? So I'll show you mine here. So of course they started out just singular seeds. And if I pour it out, you can see Bill hit it spot on that it's a gel. So they form a gel, which is crucial. And this is exactly what I want you to think about, this jelly-like material inside your stomach and your intestines, because that is what is really important for the heart health benefits. So the chia seeds I have in front of me here, I have a picture of them on this slide, the nutrition facts, and you'll see that in 3 tablespoons, they have 10 grams of fiber, which will continue in this campaign to talk about what that actually means, but that's very substantial. So just keep that in mind, that they are really fiber rich. And that's exactly what's happening inside your body when you eat them, is that they kind of partially dissolve in water, they bind up, and they form that gel, which is really important. And on the picture on the right, you'll see that 10 grams of dietary fiber is 36% of your daily value for fiber. And we'll talk more about that as well, but just make note of that, kind of keep it in the forefront of your mind. So this gel, this is what is most important about our soluble fibers. When it's forming inside of your body, it slows digestion and absorption, which keeps you full, which is great for many reasons. And it actually traps sugar, cholesterol, and fat as you're eating in your stomach and within your intestines. So there's a little picture here on the right hand side of the slide, and it's just shows trapping. Here, I'll move this over here. Trapping of the fat, cholesterol, and sugar inside that gelatinous mass. And this actually slows the rise in our blood sugar when we eat it, and it decreases our cholesterol. So these substances get bound up in the gel, and they're harder for our bodies to digest and absorb, and we excrete them, we poop them out. And so as far as cholesterol is concerned, that is really beneficial because that lowers our blood cholesterol and forces our body to make more cholesterol rather than reabsorbing it, as would otherwise happen if they weren't excreted. The cholesterol wasn't excreted in our poop. And the same is true of fat. So it decreases fat absorption, which all of these come together and they really benefit our heart health. So we're going to dive more deeply into that, but they also feed good bacteria in our body. So what happens is this gelatinous mass traps all these things. It makes its way down to our large intestine, and the bacteria actually ferment it. And for a host of other reasons, that is incredibly important, but something else to keep in mind, that's another really cool benefit of soluble fibers. So fiber and heart health, benefits and risks. Let me see if, there we go. Okay. So it has been shown that increased amounts of fiber intake in adults actually has been related to a decrease in heart disease and death, actually from death from heart disease and all-cause mortality as well. And again, this is due to the fact that it decreases our total cholesterol and our LDL or bad cholesterol, and it decreases the fat in our blood, which all of these kind of work together. Our blood pressure gets decreased, inflammation is decreased, it stabilizes our blood sugar. Remember, I talked about how sugars were trapped in this gelatinous mass as well. And it helps us manage our weight. So because we stay fuller longer, we're less apt to eat as much. And I said fibers were found in plants, which are actually less energy dense. So there's more of it to less calories, if that makes sense. So all of those factors come together and they benefit our heart health. And I have on the slide here that from one of these studies, they did an analysis and they adjusted for all the demographic and non-dietary lifestyle factors. So they were kind of pooling data from a lot of different studies. And they found that for each 10 gram per day increment in dietary fiber, they observed pooled reductions in risk of 12% for all coronary events and 19% for all coronary deaths. So that's incredibly substantial, of course. And for a lot of us, many of us that have personal or family histories of heart disease or high cholesterol, high blood pressure, this is absolutely a crucial avenue to target those through nutrition and really promote our heart health and reduce the risks of us developing heart disease and potentially dying from that. Okay, so how much do we actually need? How much fiber do we actually need to reap these benefits? Well, females that are 50 years and above, the recommended daily requirement is 21 grams per day. And for males 50 years and above, it's 30. So I have these emojis next to those amounts. They are very silly and I might not use them for a different audience, but because you are my family, to help remember these numbers, I have the wine glass for the females because 21 years of age is the drinking age, the legal drinking age. So that's how you can remember that for females, 21 grams per day. And for males, like I said, it's 30. And my brain, very mature, went to 30 to remember 30. So there's the poop emoji for you. So sorry, but that is how my brain works. And I hope that it actually does help you remember it. So 21, legal drinking age, that's for females. 30 for males, 30. There we go. So most Americans believe that they actually get the recommended amount. What percentage of people living in the United States do you think actually do get the recommended amount though? Most people think they do. How many do we think actually do? Any guesses?
50.
Maybe 25.
25, anyone else?
I'm going to say 50.
50, okay, great. The answer is, drum roll please, only about 5% of Americans get the recommended amount of dietary fiber each day, which we've talked about the health benefits. And of course, if you're not getting that, there are risks to your health as well. So that is very substantial. Only 5% of Americans, about, some figures are much less than that, actually get the recommended amount of fiber. So here's what that looks like. Unfortunately, it's a big black hole of 95% of Americans do not. So how can we work to get more? How can we change the statistic to reflect? How can we, be part of the 5% or increase that number? What are some fiber-rich foods to help us get the 21 grams for females and the 30 for males? Well, like I said, think plants for fiber. So we have fruits, vegetables, beans, nuts, and seeds, and whole grains or whole wheat. Wheat is obviously a grain, but just think of that. I think a lot of us eat wheat products. So whole wheat. And I have some pictures here of just some foods that I have in my kitchen. And I wanted to feature a few different kinds. I have frozen fruit. So certainly options for everyone. And I know it's hard to see, but on the front, it does say good source of fiber on that frozen 3-berry blend from Costco, frozen peas, canned beans. So all of these are options, definitely. And then down here, whole grain, 100% whole grain minute rice. So if we're thinking about, it's difficult, we live busy lives, we're working, these are options that don't decrease the fiber. Frozen fruit is a great option, and veggies, and canned beans as well. So certainly easy to implement into our life if we think about it that way. And we want to think about foods as a mixture of fibers. So we did distinguish between insoluble and soluble, but nothing is in isolation in foods. Foods are a conglomerate of all of the things we need. So, mix it up, and dietary diversity is really important. And, we're not consuming fiber in isolation. So that's something to think about too, is that everything is a mix. So fiber rich fruits, I have some tables here. I picked out a few. So these superscripts, you'll see a 7 there on the screen. That corresponds to the number 7 reference. So you guys you all have access to that. So if you're interested in looking at some other, I just chose some fruits, and we'll continue talking about the different categories here, but I chose some that I felt like were popular, and knowing you all that we consumed maybe more frequently. So, but if you're interested in some other ones, certainly check out that source number 7 from the Mayo Clinic. So raspberries, pears with the skin, apples with the skin. So keep in mind the skin, that's gonna come into play here. Bananas and strawberries. So as you'll see, raspberries, for example, have 8 grams of fiber in 1 cup. So that's awesome. If you're a female, you're thinking, okay, I want 21, legal drinking age. 8 is a great way to start out with that goal. So fiber-rich vegetables. You'll see green peas, broccoli, potato, again with the skin, sweet corn, and carrots. And I know you all can read, so we don't have to go through all of the details here, but certainly a good reference for you if you are interested in that. And again, like I said, fiber is in plants, so you can't go wrong with any of these plants, any of these fruits and vegetables and grains and beans and whatnot. These are just some that are particularly high, and if you have a favorite, maybe you can pick it out of this table and then know, ballpark what you're getting in this serving size. And here are some beans, nuts, and seeds. So lentils boiled, 15.5 grams in a cup. Wow, that is very substantial. And black beans as well, our chia seeds that we talked about, all of that soluble fiber that forms the gel, incredibly important. And almonds. So the fiber, like we talked about with the fruit skin, in nuts, the fiber is on that outer coating as well, primarily. So almonds and sunflower kernels, and then fiber-rich grains. So whole wheat spaghetti, bran flakes, so some options for different meals throughout the day or snacks. You have quinoa, popcorn. I know we have some popcorn lovers in the audience, brown rice, and bread, whole wheat bread. So all fiber-rich sources of grains. And we're going to focus on primarily whole grains. So let's get into that. So whole is the goal. And why is that? Well, as you'll see, the whole grain consists of the bran, the endosperm, and the germ. And what happens in the refining process is that the bran and the germ are actually stripped away. So we're just left with the endosperm. And the bran is really where a lot of the fiber is in the grain. So unfortunately, that fiber gets taken away. And sometimes nutrients are added back in the refining process, but not fiber. It's typically B vitamins and some minerals. So definitely something to keep in mind, which is why refined grains, they don't have that fiber, are linked to greater spikes in blood sugar because of, the trapping does not occur in the gel and, insoluble, doesn't absorb the water, whatnot. So that is something to keep in mind and why we are going to strive to consume whole grains primarily. We're not villainizing refined grains by any means because, there's a place for them certainly, and they do have some added B vitamins added back into them oftentimes, but something to keep in mind that whole grain certainly is heart health promoting. Are there any questions so far? Any comments, concerns?
Question for you.
Yes.
So you talked about vegetables being raw. Do you lose a lot of that fiber if you choose to cook them in like soup?
Great question. So no is a short answer, oftentimes, especially in a soup where if you're saving the water, if anything happens to leach out, if you're, then you're eating the soup. So you're eating all parts of it or whatever you're cooking in, broth, what have you. So soup is a great option for that. There are some ways to kind of preserve as many nutrients as possible. So they mentioned boiling on that table, but like steaming is a good option too. And if you can strive to kind of lightly steam and not, really make it super limp, you'll lose more as you cook, but it's not, I wouldn't say, my understanding and sources that I've read say that it's not so substantial. It's if the option is not eating them or eating them in a soup, certainly eating them in the soup is better, if that makes sense. So you can lose some, but it's not a crazy amount. It's not, in my opinion, based on my knowledge, something where you have to eat raw all the time. But a soup could be a great option because you are consuming then everything that could have potentially gotten cooked out. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. Said you talked about peas and broccoli being boiled.
Yes.
Which I don't do anymore. I put them in the microwave. Is there a difference?
Great question. I was reading about that too, just to be prepared for this, because I think it's so important. And I was reading that no, not necessarily. So microwaving is safe based on what the research said. And again, you're not losing a substantial amount. So if microwaving is quick and fits into your lifestyle, and that means you're going to eat it, then yes, that is a great option for sure.
Okay.
So not a huge difference, short answer. Anyone else?
Sydney, this is Jillian again.
Hi.
So when you eat your chia,
Yes.
or is it chia?
Chia.
chia. Do you have to let it set for a bit so it becomes gelatinous, or do you go ahead and consume it right away and allow the liquids that you consume to allow it to expand in your stomach?
So you certainly don't have to, because it will expand in your stomach either way. So, I mean, you saw how quickly it happened. We started it just in the beginning, and then once we got there, it was already, you know, this jelly. So it happens quickly, but I wouldn't worry about letting it sit, because it will happen just within your body. So you don't have to wait.
Sid, can I add something? This
Yes.
is Mom.
Please.
The package of chia that I had provided to you guys is actually an organic. It's a great value one. And their serving size is 2 tablespoons, and so there is the 10 grams and 2 tablespoons for this particular product. There's a couple of recipes on here, Jillian, that are really, they sound good. Like it's an overnight chia pudding is one recipe. And then I've often put chia seeds into my yogurt, and it absorbs the liquid from the yogurt also, because there is a not a grit, but there's a texture to it. We'll just call it a texture. So I think I have found putting them into something that already contains liquid is a positive for me.
Yeah, definitely. I put it on my oatmeal as well, which oats have a lot of soluble fiber. So if you think of that, when you make oatmeal, you know how it really thickens up, similar to the chia. So, but yes, I agree. I made oatmeal this morning as well, and just watching that process happen. Sometimes the chia will kind of clump together too, because of that soluble fiber, and it does form that gel. But yeah, Mom, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of those recipes, please, that would be great.
I absolutely will. There's also a chia egg substitute, which I had no clue.
That's
It's
on my
literally
as
making
well.
it, yeah. So it's a tablespoon of the chia seeds and water, and then you just use it, and it's as if it were an egg, which is just amazing.
Yeah, we'll have to try that. That sounds fun.
Real quick question too, where does one find those in the grocery store? What aisle would they be in?
In King Soopers, they're in baking-ish. Kind of like with oats and gluten-free stuff, but are you Wisconsin folks?
Yes.
familiar?
Also baking, and in like the different flours in this particular store, like by the almond flours and but definitely baking aisle.
I would love to hear
Thank you.
up though, Jillian. I'm excited about that. I also want to be mindful of the time. I'm sorry. I love these questions.
Sydney?
I'm just going to try to get going here. Yes.
Yep. Well, I had a question. Go ahead.
No, please.
Well, you talked about beans. How about green beans as a vegetable? Are they good in fiber?
Yes. I believe they're on that list as well. I just chose something different for that chart, but yes, great for fiber. Very fiber rich, definitely. Yes. Any other questions? I want to make sure I kind of talk about my recipe here too. So I'll try to breeze through the rest here as much as possible. So again, we talked about the bran, the germ, and the endosperm are all part of the whole grain, which is what gets stripped away in the refining process. So this is just a comparison of same brand of noodles. One is just refined, the other one is the whole grain. And you'll see that the dietary fiber in the whole, which is the bottom box, is 6 grams for the same serving size versus 2 grams. So, just a visual representation that it's fairly a large amount there. And boxes around the ingredients here, you'll see a highlighted whole. So that's what we're looking for in the ingredients, is that word whole, which it can get kind of confusing. But the goal is to make at least half of the grains you eat whole grains. So kind of debunking some confusion here. I went to the grocery store, I went to King Soopers here in Colorado, and this is what I saw on the shelf. So white enriched, so we all know what that means now. It's refined, and the enriched means that they did add back some of the B vitamins. So you'll see that in the ingredient list here, less than 1 gram of fiber in that. Wheat is not actually 100% whole wheat in this case. So this is why it's important to look at the ingredients and the nutrition facts sometimes, because unfortunately it can get confusing. So it is wheat. It does have whole wheat. That's first, but it also has enriched flour. So that it's like a mixture of the two. So it's not whole wheat, unfortunately. So you'll see versus the enriched had less than 1. This one has 1 gram. So a little bit more. Far right is 100% whole wheat. So you'll see it just has whole wheat flour. It doesn't have any enriched mix in. And unfortunately, the serving size was different, which makes it confusing. It's 2 slices versus 1 slice, but it has more fiber in it, is what I'm trying to say, because it has 3 grams per serving versus just the wheat had 1 for 1 slice. So more fiber, and just pointing out that it's important to look at the ingredients sometimes for these things. A few more examples here. Some bread that I have. If you have a grain product, I asked you guys to have that handy as well. I would love for you to just take a look at what you have in front of you. So you can sometimes find this whole grain seal that can kind of just be like confirmation for you, because it's not on everything, but they have various stamps basically. So this one says it has whole grains. Some say 50% whole grains, some say 100%. So just kind of another checkbox as you're trying to figure out, is this actually whole grain, or is this wheat or whole wheat or what have you? So this is actually a chickpea pasta here on the left. And I just wanted to point out, it actually breaks down soluble and insoluble, which is cool. That's optional, but it has a ton of fiber. So I thought that was neat. Chris and I eat that pretty frequently. And then another enriched bread that you'll see, not the green one, but this other bread here has a lot less fiber. Then some wheat thins, they're made with 100% whole grain wheat flour as well. So 3 grams of fiber per serving of those. So just something to keep in mind. So the daily value is based on 28 grams of fiber. So the far right corner, you see percent daily value. So, remember I said women, 21 grams for 50 older is the goal for fiber. Men is 30. So I would recommend, I guess, looking at the actual gram amount and just trying to get to your 21 or your 30 based on that, because 21 for women is much less than 28 is what I was getting at there. You want to look for whole grains on the ingredient list. And then when you're looking at the ingredients, just kind of a sidebar, they're listed in descending order by weight. So the first ingredient, the one towards the beginning, means that's the most, that it contains the most of that one ingredient. And then as they continue, it's less and less and less into that food that you're looking at. So eat fiber at every meal. That's going to be the goal here. Again, think plants. So how can you incorporate plants into every meal that you eat? A great thing to keep in mind is to eat the peel or the skin. So remember when we were looking at those tables, we had a pear with the skin, an apple with the skin, potato with the skin. The skin has a lot of the fiber. So that is something to keep in mind, that a whole apple will have more fiber than applesauce, will have more fiber than apple juice. So the further you process it, the more fiber is lost in that process. Same goes for a baked potato with the skin, or if you're peeling the potatoes and then making mashed potatoes, you won't have as much fiber. You will have a greater spike in blood sugar. You won't have quite as much of a health benefit for the reasons that we talked about. Again, whole is the goal. Try to have at least half of your grains, whole grains if possible, and whole foods, because they contain lots of, like I said, it's not in isolation. They have tons of phytochemicals and vitamins and minerals and all of the other health benefits in the actual whole foods. For that reason, it's preferred to actually get all your nutrients from whole foods rather than supplements. Fiber is no exception to that. So we're going to talk about a recipe. We have like 2 minutes. 40 minutes goes very quickly. So you should have in your brochure, you should have this recipe, we're not going to have time, unfortunately, today, unless we come back to cook together. I do have it ready. So if we want to jump on separately and do that, I would love to cook with you guys. But I chose a recipe. It's relatively easy to make. It's from the American Heart Association. So super heart healthy for plenty of reasons other than just that it's fiber rich. And let's see, we can end with that. I just wanted to, our key takeaways. More plants equals more fibers. We talked about the 21 grams for women, 30 for men. Eating more fiber will reduce your risk of heart disease and death from heart disease and all-cause mortality. And fiber rich is flavorful. So I would love for you guys to check out this recipe in your brochure. It's, you know, fall inspired. Hopefully it's getting cooler in Wisconsin. It is very hot here right now, but I'm ready for some chili. So that is what we're doing. Are there any last questions? I'm sorry we don't have more time. Here are some references that I would love for you guys to check out as well if you have any further questions or anything like that. And I guess we have less than a minute. I just wanted to talk about who can say in our chili, you should have that recipe, what is high fiber in the chili?
The beans.
Beans,
Skinless turkey
yes.
breast. It's not good.
Corn,
Mhm.
Tomatoes,
Pinto beans,
yep,
maybe.
those could be, yeah.
pinto beans, black beans.
So yep, definitely black pinto. So super high fiber. And I would love for you to think about how you can alter some of your other favorite recipes too, to be more high fiber. So choosing whole grain flour instead of all-purpose flour potentially, or does anyone have any other suggestions as we finish up here?